Okay, this is a quick video which is designed to illustrate the advantage of using layers in Illustrator. So on my screen I have a series of little graphics and icons on the left hand side of my document window, and I have a light blue square with a dark blue border on the right hand side. So my goal is to assemble the pieces of my graphic from the left-hand side and put them into the right-hand side. So I'm going to start doing that by just dragging these pieces over from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And the first thing that I notice is that as soon as I drag the sail over into the light blue square, that my sail disappears. So I'm going to put that back with the controller Command Z, and move that over again, and I see that my sail is slipping behind the light blue square. So normally what people do in Illustrator, as they do in PowerPoint, is that they will right click on the object and they will find the arrange and then bring this object to the front, which will work. So I can do this. I'm going to just again just start assembling my pieces. I'm going to pull my boat over. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, my boat didn't disappear. That's good. And I need a mast on my boat. And when I let go of that, I see that my mast actually is disappeared. I can see the selection lines, but I can't see the mast anymore. So I'm going to Control or Command Z and put that back. But instead of continuing to go to the right click Arrange, what I'm going to do is look over at my Layers panel. And I see that I have what many people have when they use Illustrator is one layer where I have put everything. If I twirl open this layer and expand it, I can actually see where all of my pieces are. And once I have these layers expanded like this and I can see them, I can just start dragging them into position. So the first thing that I'm going to decide is that this blue rectangle probably needs to be sitting at the bottom of my stack. So I'm just going to click and drag that layer down to the bottom, and that's good. So now that left my sail and my boat in place. That's good. I'm going to now take my mast, and it needs to go behind the boat and the sail. That's good. So now I'm going to move the sail over a little bit. Perfect. And I'm going to move this little pennant over and put that in place. That looks good. And I'm going to take my logo for my sail, and I'm going to pop it up there at the top of the sail where it belongs. And I see that it has disappeared. So just by looking over in my layer stack, I can see that the little sun logo is living below the sail path. So I'm going to push that up to the top, and now my logo is sitting in place where it should be. And I've got a cloud. I'm going to put that into position. So that looks good. And then I've got my water, and it's going to go right here. And oops, got my sailboat a little high on that. And I also see that I've got a problem with my water being outside of the frame. So the problem with that is that while I could pull my water path down below the rectangle, the blue rectangle, I will then have a problem in that I won't be able to see the water at all. So what I need to do is do a copy. So I need to have a rectangle that has a fill and a rectangle that has a stroke, and put the stroke on the top and the fill underneath. So I'm going to take my rectangle with the light blue fill, and I'm going to drag it down to make a new layer. So now I have two of these, and I'm going to select my bottom rectangle, and I'm going to come over to my fill chip and say that I do not want to fill on that. And then I'm going to come up to my other rectangle, and I'm going to say that I don't want a stroke on that one. So now when I go back to my layers, I have a stroke on an empty fill and a fill with no stroke. And if I pull this rectangle with no fill in it all the way up to the top, then I have a nice frame. So that's good. I have my summersailing.com that I still need to add into the water. Oops, which I can't see anymore because it's now underneath my water. So I'm going to move my text up above my water because I can see that. And now the only thing that I really need to do is move my sailboat a little bit. So the nice thing about being able to move my sailboat a little bit is uh, it would be easy to do that if I could just select just all of the sail pieces, but I have other things that are getting in the way. So now what most people should do is to start creating other layers. And what I'd like to do is have a layer with all of my sailing elements in it, and then I'd like a layer with my frame element and a layer with my fill element. So I'm going to select my little sun logo, and with holding the shift key down I'm also going to select the sail, and I'm going to select my summer cloud, and I'm going to select the text, and I'm going to select my water and the boat and the little pennant and the mast. And now what I'm going to do is put them all on their own layer. And to do that, I'm going to select the top layer and come down and add another layer by selecting create a new layer. And then if you notice that if I twirl layer 1 up, I still have things selected, and that everything that's selected is represented by this dot. And if I click and push to my new layer 2, then all of those pieces that I had selected go up to that layer. So now what I also need to do is create a new layer to put my frame rectangle on. And so I'm going to push this up to my new layer 3, and I'm going to rename this frame. I'm going to rename this sailboat, and I'm going to rename this fill. So now that I have these things separated like this, I can lock down my fill layer, and I can lock down my frame layer, and I can select everything on my sailboat layer and move everything just a little bit. So when that happened, I see that I got more things moved than I wanted to. So I'm going to undo this with a Control Z, and I'm going to twirl this open and click down until I have nothing selected. And what I'd like is just these elements, and I could go through and click each one, or now that my background is locked down and these elements are not actually touching each other, I can just marquee over the things that I do want to move, settle that boat down in the water a little bit more, and that did not move my water, and it didn't move my sailing.com, which needed to be moved up a little bit. And now everything is in position just how I want it, and it was a whole lot easier than going to that arrange forward and backward in the stack. So that is a good illustration of why it's very valuable to create layers, especially when you have a lot of things going on and you need everything stacked in a particular order.